So everyone knows the story of how Japan basically invented tuner culture. For 2 straight decades, they gave us the coolest cars on the planet. But then it all just kind of stopped. The bubble burst, regulations tightened, corporate strategy shifted from passion to practicality. Our beloved Japanese automakers started churning out sensible, but soul-crushingly boring appliances. And at this point, it just feels like the golden era of JDM is over, and the hearts and minds of car enthusiasts kinda went away along with it. But in this low point in automotive history, a movement is bubbling up. People are asking themselves, if the automakers won't build interesting cars anymore, what if we make our existing cars unforgettable? So today we're going to look at what happens when enthusiasts decide to take car design into their own hands. So this first car trend is pretty obvious to understand as a basic form of rebellion. They're selling us quiet, dull-looking economy cars that are meant to be ignored, right? So what if we make our cars so loud and bright and so unapologetically extra that you could never ignore them? Thus, they invented Bosozoku, and apologies for my pronunciation there. Born from rebellious youth biker gangs in a post-war Tokyo, the Bosozoku style migrated to cars in the early 1970s and 80s. These aren't just cars, they're declarations of war against conformity. You take a stock Japanese sedan and transform it into something that looks like it was designed by a comic book villain. They're slammed to the ground with massive front splitters and spoilers that look like they're taken straight off of a fighter jet. And the signature move, the giant exhaust pipes that stretch like 5 or 6 feet into the air. Absolutely absurd. The paint jobs are pretty crazy too. Like, it's not uncommon to see neon colors, frames, or like intricate graffiti style kanji work on the side of these things. Honestly, it feels like what it would look like if One Piece characters drove cars instead of ships. And while it's not particularly my cup of tea, I can definitely get behind the idea. Make yourself so visibly and audibly loud that you can't be ignored. But surely, this is as peacocky as it gets, right? Well, that brings us to Dekotora, or decoration trucks. While Bosozoku came from the city, a similar concept was being done at a whole nother level in the fishing communities of northern Japan. At first, truckers started adding lights and chrome to their rigs. Then, in 1975, a movie series called Truck Guys hit theaters, and the trend exploded into a nationwide phenomenon. Today, you can see them on the highway, 18-wheelers that have been transformed into rolling nightclubs. Imagine a truck completely covered in thousands of neon lights, all blinking and flashing in patterns that light up entire neighborhoods. And the cabs are filled with stainless steel, golden trim, and airbrushed art of everything from like samurai to anime characters. Some even have crystal chandeliers and leather couches in them. These trucks are so extreme that they often can't pass Japan's strict regulations and inspections, so they use gray market certificates to keep their cars on the road. It's absolutely insane. Much like Bosozoku, I don't love the look, but I can definitely get behind the idea of taking something purely utilitarian and making it colorful, fun, and different. In my opinion, it more than proves the idea that the best car can actually be the one you already have. Anyway, if chrome and neon lights aren't your thing, you can always vinyl wrap a life-size tribute to your favorite anime girl right on the side of your car. Some people might call you a weeb, but you can actually tell them it's a rich cultural tradition called Itasha. Itasha actually translates to painful car, which I imagine refers to the painful amounts of cringe you feel when you see one of these things on the road. These cars are mobile shrines to anime, manga, video games, and whatever other 2D character the driver fell in love with. And we're not talking about slapping a few stickers on your windshield. This is a full professional wrap that transforms the car into a rolling anime body pillow. And there are no rules. You'll see a Lamborghini plastered with Hatsune Miku, a luxury sedan covered in Spy X family characters, or a K-car completely wrapped in manga pages. And what I love about this is that the owners aren't trying to be cool. They're trying to say, this is who I am and I don't want to fit in. Ironically though, you can see hundreds of these things meet up at Itasha events, and there's usually at least one driving around any given US suburb. Now it's cringe. Nobody's saying it's not. But it's also inspiring. When you see one of these things rolling around, you can't help but crack a smile and take a picture. It doesn't hurt anyone, and it just brings extra weirdness to a scene that I think is getting way too norified. So I say keep on vinyl wrapping, you freaky, freaky people. The next car trend is one that I really like. It's less about being loud and defiant and more about quiet confidence and subtle power. VIP culture takes massive luxury sedans and drops them all the way down to the pavement. The kind of cars that you'd see CEOs in, now lowered so aggressively that they sit inches from the ground, effectively saying, yeah, I am crazy enough to modify a luxury car. The wheels are huge, perfectly polished, the windows are tinted black, the paint is muted, blacks, whites, grays. On the surface, it's clean, refined, and restrained. But that's the genius. VIP culture understands that sometimes the most aggressive statement is the quiet one. As the legend goes, Yakuza bosses pioneered this style in the late 80s to look imposing without shouting. It's intimidation delivered in silence. The interiors are just as important. Pleated and leather, custom wood trim, even crystal decanters. They're meant to look like rolling penthouse suites. Now, I absolutely love this not only because it looks badass, but also because it brings a new category of cars into the enthusiast domain. Comfortable, luxury, sports sedans. These beasts are often overlooked by the aftermarket community because they're heavy and expensive. But having a comfortable build is totally viable in my opinion. Not everything needs to be a stripped down crotch rocket with roll bars in it. VIP culture proves that luxury isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers, and sometimes a whisper is louder than a scream. Now, onto the complete opposite side of things. What if you took the least expensive car you could find and built it with a single purpose in mind? Speed. That's something called Kanjo. On the elevated highways of Osaka, there's a 10-kilometer circuit called the Kanjo Loop. Since the 80s, it's been a hunting ground for street racers who almost exclusively drive Honda Civics. Not regular Honda Civics. They're stripped down, tuned to the absolute limit, and painted with liveries that look hand-painted in a garage. They're raw, functional, homemade race cars. But what makes them legendary is the danger. Racers wear hockey masks to hide their identities and run from police, drive against traffic, hang out of windows at over 100 miles per hour. They're absolute madmen. And for decades, the Kanjo Loop was ground zero for illegal street racing in Japan. Police crackdowns have slowed it down a lot, but the spirit definitely hasn't died. They created an insane name for themselves, and I don't blame anyone for wanting to emulate their cars so they too can experience a piece of that culture. But not everyone who loved the 80s Honda Civics wanted to smash them to pieces on the Kanjo Loop. Enthusiasts of our final car trend saw those same cars not as disposable tools, but as perfect time capsules. Drivers who are into shakotan, or low car, are all about appreciation for the classics. It's about taking classic JDM platforms from the 70s and 80s like Skylines, Celicas, and Datsuns and then lowering them, but with a deep respect for tradition. You'll see vintage 14-inch wheels, period-correct spoilers, and overall very tasteful resto mods. The style exploded in popularity through a manga series called Shakotan Boogie in the 80s, and it's still very much alive today. Now, I absolutely love this. I think every country that has a strong domestic auto market has some sect of people who will always say that the older cars are better. This is just the actualization of that belief, where you actually put your money where your mouth is and take one of those pieces of history and show people how cool it is to drive it day to day. I mean, just look for yourself. Some of these builds are absolutely gorgeous. And they weren't engineered in Stuttgart or Detroit. They weren't dreamed up in a boardroom or a marketing department. They were born from the ground up, from late-night garage sessions and parking lot meets, from enthusiasts who looked at the boring soulless sedans and econo boxes that the industry was giving them and said, no, we can do better. This was a rebellion against automotive conformity. Japan took the ordinary, a Toyota, a Honda, a work truck, even an 18-wheeler, and made it extraordinary. Not through multi-million-dollar R&D budgets, but through sheer imagination and refusal to accept the status quo. And that's the thing about car culture. It really isn't about what the manufacturers sell us. It's about what we turn them into. It's about the people brave enough to see the vision, bold enough to build it, and fearless enough to drive it. So the next time you're at a car show or a late-night meet and you see a car that looks completely out of place, a slam sedan, a truck covered in lights, or a sports car wrapped in Naruto vinyl, now you'll know that it's not just one weird car. It's part of a global story. You can identify the style, understand the history, and appreciate the passion. And with that, thanks for watching.